It's that damn phone again. It's been ringing all goddamn day. I answered with my usual greeting. Sam Brown. Sam, baby, do you think you can get off early and get our weekend started? Her voice was like honey, sweet in consistency, which always turned me on. What about Angela? I sent her home early. There's no one here. Hurry up. I shut down the computer, forwarded my phone to voicemail, and locked the office behind me. I practically ran to my car. There wouldn't be much traffic at this time of day, even on a Friday. I'd be at her house in half an hour. I first met Christy when she walked into music class. We were both juniors in high school. There was only one empty seat for the blonde-haired, blue-eyed beauty who was 170 centimeters tall, and it was right next to mine. We exchanged greetings and names before Miss Kremer began her lecture on the evolution of jazz in early 20th century America. Yes, I remember that moment vividly. It was the day I fell in love with Christy Holman. Christy and I dated throughout our freshman year. I knew she dated other guys from time to time, but I put up with it because, 1, I had to, and 2, she was usually free for at least one night every weekend. Spring came, and I had a great year for 3 reasons. I played on the varsity tennis team. It looked like I was going to get into state. My SAT scores came back, and I was in the 99th percentile. Everything looked good for admission to the college of my choice. Only one thing could make this year better, and I planned to complete my personal C on Saturday. I took Christy to see the movie Shampoo because everyone said she looked like a younger, blonde version of Lee Grant. The movie was sexy, and afterward Christy and I kissed passionately in my car. She'd never let me do anything but French kiss and the occasional rubbing of her breasts through her blouse, and tonight was no exception. I stopped kissing Christy long enough to ask her my question. Christy, will you go to the prom with me? Sam, I'm sorry. Jake Harmon had already asked, and I said yes. Jake was the best quarterback in our school. I didn't even know they were dating. My ego fell into a deep, dark hole. I spent the next half hour holding myself together as I drove her home and walked Christy to her parents' door. She kissed me on the lips and walked into the house. The porch light went out. It didn't help when, the next day at Sunday dinner, my mom, in her usual cheerful manner, asked if Christy was happy to be invited to the prom. My little brother Jeff, my dad, and Mom all watched me with smiles on their faces. I truly had a kind, loving family. I grew up in a safe cocoon. I can't tell you how happy she was when she agreed to go to the prom, probably happy because she said yes to him. To him? Who is it to him? Christy is going to the prom with Jake Harmon. Let's just say that my parents did everything they could to help me get over this bump in the road. Like I said, I grew up in a loving family. I did my best to avoid Christy during the summers between junior and senior high school. But fall came, school started, and avoiding her became more difficult. Christy acted like nothing was wrong. One Friday afternoon, she even cornered me and asked me to take her to a soccer game. I only agreed because I was going anyway. Jeff was the starter. What a twist. Here I am sitting next to Christy, and she's calling for Jake, and I yell every time Jake passes to Jeff. Confused, huh? After the game, I did my duty and handed Christy to Jake as he was leaving the locker room. Jake was actually a great guy. It wasn't his fault he was dating the girl I loved. When he came out of the locker room, all excited about the win, he greeted me with words. Your brother had a great game. His throws made me look good. He shook my hand and thanked me for taking care of his girl. I did my best to spend as little time with Christy as possible. The school was big, so it was easy to limit myself to a few conversations a week. Besides, Christy was busy with Jake. That's why what happened in February seemed so strange. It was the day after my 18th birthday, and I was hanging out at home studying. I opened to a knock on the door and found Christy standing there. Hey, Sam, can I come in? I let her in. Are your parents home? No, Jeff? No, what's up? I brought you a birthday present. Christy took my hand and led me down the stairs to the study. Happy birthday, Sam? Christy gave me a heartfelt kiss. Our tongues played with each other, her hand on the back of my neck pulling me to her mouth. Christy's hands slid down to my pants. My belt buckle came undone, and the zipper unzipped, her hand in my underpants. I'd always wondered, Sam. It always seemed big. It feels good. Christy looked back at me and smiled. Thank you, Sam. Happy birthday. I didn't know what to say. I had lost my virginity and experienced my first bliss with a woman. Here was the girl of my dreams, giving me what I wanted more than anything. It didn't occur to me until later that day. How had Christy, who had just turned 18 a month ago, been able to learn so much about sex? If I thought this was a revival of Christy and Sam, I was wrong. Christy continued to date Jake. We still talked from time to time, and sometimes when we passed each other in the hallway, Christy holding Jake's hand, she would secretly smile at me, exchanging non-verbally something that only the two of us knew. We graduated from high school. Christy went to Arizona State University and I went to Northwestern. Christy changed from high school quarterback to college basketball forward and later to a swimmer destined to compete in the Olympics. We saw each other in the summer and on any vacations when Christy was home. That's where our relationship reached its crazy status that lasted for years. Despite Christy's other relationships in high school, here at home, we became lovers. It started the summer after freshman year. Christy and I were at the same party. She came up to me and talked to me like we were best friends. I drove her home and we made love in her parents' mother-in-law's spare apartment above the garage. I made love and Christy just fucked. Christy seemed pleased with my performance. I spent my freshman year at Northwestern University trying to get a few female students to like me. "Why, Sam, have you improved your playing since last time? You now have the tools and the talent." For the next 3 years, through college, we did the same thing, slept with each other in Chicago and with other people the rest of the time while at our schools. I seriously thought we'd have a chance after graduation. Christy talked about moving back to Chicago and finding jobs in the city. For that reason, I turned down a great job offer from a company. I want to remain unnamed because I'm so embarrassed I turned it down, in Palo Alto that was doing some cutting-edge work on personal computers. Imagine my surprise when Christy called me and told me that she had decided to go to graduate school at UCLA. I believe that during Christy's time at the University of Southern California, she acquired a taste for the finer things in life. Interacting with the rich, beautiful people of Southern California gave her the opportunity to know what it was like to spend a day on someone's yacht or ride down Rodeo Drive in a Bentley with her buddies. After 2 years at UCLA, Christy did come home. I was still single, and we started dating and having sex again. I wondered again if this could be the one. Could this be what I had been waiting for? My parents and brother had told me I was crazy, and I resented their disbelief. Was I not good enough for her? Was that what they were trying to say? Of course it wasn't. But I was too stupid to realize that they thought Christy wasn't good enough for me. So Christy and I dated for the next 5 months until I was ready to pop the question and give Christy an engagement ring for Christmas. That is, until one evening when I returned from a wonderful evening listening to Beethoven at the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. Sir George was at the peak of his playing that evening, and I was walking on air, the Seventh Symphony spinning in my head, and Christy was walking beside me, holding my hand. "Sam, we need to talk." "Eh?" "This is our last date. I'm getting married in June. He proposed to me last weekend, and I said yes. He agreed that I could go to the symphony with you tonight, just so you know." "Who's that?" "His name is Kent Thomas. He's a man I met at work. He owns one of the companies we supply materials to. And he knows that you and I dated and slept together while you were dating him?" "Yes, but he knows it's over between us, and he says it doesn't matter as long as I promise to be faithful from now on." Wow, an understanding guy. "Yeah, he's great." Christy didn't mention, and very rich. And now, it's finally over. At least I thought it was. I dreamed about Christy almost every night for the first year after our last breakup. She was married to Kent Thomas, and I tried to forget that. My friends and family did everything they could to help me get over it. When kindness didn't work, they teased me. When teasing didn't work, they tried tough love. I was starting to come around until one day she walked into my office. "Hey, Sam," just like it hadn't been over a year since she'd said goodbye to me. "Hey, Christy, what brings you here?" "Kent's going to Argentina for a week of fly fishing on some river somewhere. I'm staying in town, and I was wondering if you wanted some company." "What are you talking about? You're married." "Yeah, but I'm not dead yet, and Kent isn't you when it comes to sex." I hesitated. "Are you seeing someone, Sam?" "No, but that's not the point. I'm not going to stand here and beg, Sam. If you want, here's my address. Come by after 6. Angela, our maid, will be gone. You can stop by the garage. Here's the remote. Close the door behind you. I'll be waiting. God help me." I went to her house that night and stayed until 4 o'clock in the morning. The sex was incredible. Christy was insatiable. It went on for 2 years. Kent would go out of town, and Christy would call, and I would come running. All the while, I waited for Christy to come to her senses. How could she stay with him when she obviously loved me more? I know I couldn't compete with his money. Heck, I wasn't even at the same level, but I was earning very well. I could afford vacations, cars, and luxury items. Maybe not the month-long European vacations, or the Mercedes-Benz 450 convertible she drove, or the 4-carat diamonds she wore, but did she really need those things when she could have me? During those 2 years, I saw less and less of my family. My mother and father, my brother and his wife were embarrassed and disgusted by me. My brother's wife, Rachel, most of all. She had strong feelings about adultery, and I was never invited to their home, though she never forbade Jeff from being with me. I think she hoped he would be an influence on me. I waited 2 years. Then, I tore my gaze away from my desk and saw him standing in front of it. I naturally checked his hands for a gun or some other weapon, nothing but 2 hands, not even clenched into fists. I'd never met him before, but I recognized him from the photos that adorned the hallway leading to their bedroom. The photos showed him with Christy in Venice, Buenos Aires, Paris, and a host of other exotic places. He was a little shorter than me in height, but still in great shape for a man in his 50s, impeccably dressed. His suit probably cost as much as my entire closet. In keeping with the fashion for casual wear, he didn't wear a tie. The collar of his insanely well-ironed shirt was unbuttoned. His clothes, his immaculate haircut, his whole being just pissed me off. "What do you want?" I said it in the most threatening tone I could muster. I got bolder when I saw he didn't have a gun. "May I sit down?" "Go on." "Mr. Brown, I came here to ask you how much it would cost me if you stopped seeing my wife." "Mr. Thomas, you don't have that much money. I have plenty of money." "Mr. Thomas, I've been in love with Christy for 12 years. I should be her husband, not you. You're only her husband because you can buy her what she deserves. Do you really think a woman as beautiful as Christy would marry a man 20 years older than she is if he had no money? No, I have no doubt that Christy married me because I have money. But that doesn't change the fact that I love her and that she and I have made vows. She says she loves me, and I believe her. And I know it sounds ridiculous to say she loves me when at the same time I'm looking at a man who sleeps with her every time I'm out of town. The simple fact is, Mr. Brown, Christy married me, not you. His arrogance continued to piss me off, and I exploded. Yes, you married her, but I'm the one who has her. My outburst of anger must have hit Kent Thomas between the eyes and right in the soul. His expression became sad and his mouth creased. Finally, he spoke. "Mr. Brown, I love my wife. Yes, she's a flawed human being, and yes, you two have sex, but in every other way, Christy is a wonderful wife. Her only fault is the feelings she has for you, but it's not love. Otherwise, she would have left me and married you when I confronted her face to face. I offered Christy her freedom, and I even handed her a check for $1 million. She wouldn't take it. This has got to be bullshit. There's no way Christy would turn down $1 million. It would give us everything we need to be together." "Mr. Thomas, I don't believe you. This conversation is over. I would appreciate it if you would leave my office now." Kent Thomas got up from his chair and left without saying a word. Christy didn't call for a few days, but I didn't expect her to call if her husband was in town watching. I decided to contact my brother and go to the Blackhawks game. We were having a great time until I brought up Kent Thomas's visit. "You're not going to believe this, Jeff. The man actually sat there and practically begged me to stop seeing Christy. Can you believe a guy would stoop that low?" My little brother just stared at me with a look of surprise on his face. I couldn't stand it. "What? You're really going to sit here and talk about another man's groveling when it comes to Christy? My brother? A man who spent over a decade expecting her to be his girlfriend or wife or whatever. She'd been my girlfriend and my lover for most of that time. And yet, she dated a quarterback in high school, a college basketball star, and married another man. I'm just glad Rachel has a different definition of commitment. Rachel wouldn't be my wife if she had the same attitude of exclusivity as your girlfriend." From that point on, it all went downhill from there. I think I made a derogatory remark about Rachel. It ended when Jeff told me, "Screw you," and walked out of the bar. I didn't hear from Christy for the next few months. She was in Europe for a while and then came to their home in Palm Beach. One Saturday, Christy called me at the last minute. "Will you be able to come here tonight? I have the evening free." But the Palm Beach tickets were booked until 10 o'clock at night, and nothing came of it. It wasn't until 7 months after Kent Thomas visited my office that I was able to see Christy again. We knew her house was now off limits, so we met at the Drake while she went shopping. It cost me a lot of money, but it was worth it. Nothing seemed to have changed between Christy and me. The sex, as always, was out of this world. For 2 hours, we made love. For 2 hours, I tried my best to make her forget that she was living in another world. At the end of the 2 hours, Christy took a shower, got dressed, and left the room. I watched her the whole time. I looked up from my desk and saw him standing there. He was a tall man with pale skin, almost pasty white. I didn't recognize him, but I recognized the shiny object in his hand. I've never fired a gun, but I understand how they work. It was a stainless steel revolver. He raised the gun and put the muzzle to my forehead. I heard a distinctive click as he pulled the trigger back, and I wet my pants. When he spoke, it was a slight accent. Irish, I think. "You should have taken the money you were offered." I was scared, as scared as I'd ever been in my life. "Is it too late?" "Oh, yeah, it's too late. The money you were supposed to get was given to me." My intestines nearly twisted at those words. Anyway, I farted horribly. My little office was really starting to stink. "Son of a bitch, you really are a wuss. I'll make this quick. This is your last warning. You write, talk, see her again, I'll come back and shoot you in the head. Just like that. Oh, if you call the cops and tell them about this visit, you won't like what my partner will do to you before he blows your head off. You'll be begging for the bullet to stop your pain." The guy just turned around and walked out. I did exactly as I was asked. I never spoke to Christy again, except to tell her both times she called that I was seeing another woman and wouldn't see her again. When Christy tried to talk, I told her that it would be better if we just didn't even talk to each other. Christy seemed hurt that I had closed her door. She obviously knew nothing about the threats I was receiving from her husband. 3 months later, I was dining alone at a small Greek restaurant on Halsted. They walked into the restaurant together. Heck, of all the thousands of restaurants in Chicago, and especially this one, this is not the kind of place a multimillionaire and his trophy wife frequent. What the hell were they doing here? They were sitting where I was supposed to be facing them, just a couple tables away, close enough to overhear. Christy looked over and saw me. She leaned over and told Kent that she recognized a friend. Would he mind if she walked over and said hello? "Of course not, dear." Christy got up from her chair and walked over to me. "Sam, what a surprise. How are you?" I watched Kent with side vision as Christy answered. He was watching, smiling. "I'm fine, Christy. Are you?" "Better than ever. Still seeing that lady you told me about?" "My made-up stay alive lady." I lied. "Yeah, I think we're getting married." "That's good, Sam. Are you going to invite your old friend to the wedding?" "No, I don't think so." Christy lowered her voice so Kent wouldn't hear. "God, Sam, do you have to be so damn cold?" Kent shook his head now, and his smile turned sinister. "Go back to your husband and leave me alone." "Fuck you." Christy turned and walked back to Kent. I put the 20 on the table and walked out without looking at them. As I walked to the door, it hit me. Meeting them at that restaurant wasn't a coincidence. I was being followed, and he knew where I would be. Kent Thomas took Christy there to gloat. He won, and I lost. 2 days later, the same tall Irishman came into my office. All he said was, "Keep up the good work." That was it. My brother and I mended our relationship, but only after I apologized for being such an asshole to Rachel. She didn't deserve my disrespect. She was Jeff's loving wife. They convinced me that I needed professional help. I spent 6 months with a therapist trying to overcome 12 years of longing for a woman who never wanted anything from me but support. It took me those 6 months to realize this. What makes a woman like Christy attractive, Doc? What makes her treat the man she loves like that? Do you think Christy loves you? She told me she does. She's been telling me that since high school. She was the first woman I ever made love to. We continued to make love until her husband started threatening me. I don't know Christy and can't say for sure, but from everything you've told me, she is a classic narcissist. The world revolves around her and what she wants, what she thinks she deserves. She wants everything that comes with wealth, but she also wants great sex. Her husband gave her one thing. You gave her another. One man could never fill the void a woman has unless he was super rich, super stud, and there are very few of those men around. Not enough for all the women looking for Mr. Everything. Plus, even if the husband is wealthy enough and great in bed, does he spend enough time with her, or does he make a living supporting their lifestyle? And is he meeting her emotional needs? You see, Sam, people with narcissism will always find an excuse to want more. And just to be clear, this doesn't just apply to women. Needs and wants may vary, but there are narcissistic men who can't fill their bucket. Think about some of the masters of the universe types you've encountered in the business world. They have the same problems, just different needs. What about Kent Thomas, her husband, Doc? How does a man afford to support a wife who cheated on him? How does he put up with it? The doctor did his best to hide his surprise at my question. He thought for a moment, then said, "I'd like you to answer your own question, Samuel. How have you put up with this all these years, waiting for a woman who obviously treated you with such disrespect? You've loved the illusion all this time. At least Mr. Thomas sleeps with her and spends most of his time in the same house with the woman he loves. You have been given far less of her, and you have come back again and again all these years." His words touched me deeply. At first, I was angry at what he said and the way he said it. I almost canceled my next session the following week. But over the next few weeks, we talked about it. His words reinforced everything my parents, brother, and friends had been trying to make me understand for so long. The situation became clearer. I can honestly say that 6 months later, I was able to resist Christie's next challenge, even without the Irishman's threat of physical harm. I was almost there, and almost free of her. It took another 2 months to place an ad in the Men Seeking Women column in the Reader's newspaper. It was the best option for online dating. I met several women that way, but it turned out that I met my future wife through friends. When Fred and Diane Turner realized I had finally broken up with Christie, they introduced me to their friend. Stacy Roberts was and still is a beautiful woman both inside and out. How I was so lucky that this woman was still single and wanted to eventually marry me is beyond the blessings I deserve. We have 2 beautiful children, and in the 30 years we have been married, I can honestly say that Christie has not pursued me in my dreams. I had received an invitation to our high school reunion and was about to throw it in the trash when the phone rang. It was Larry Parker, one of my best friends in elementary and high school. "Sam Brown, it's been too long. I contacted some guys on the tennis team and they want you to come to the reunion. Most are pissed you haven't been to a reunion in 10 years. After Larry and I talked about life, I agreed to come. It would be great to see these guys." Stacy bought a new dress and heeled shoes for the event. She looked classy sexy, not slutty sexy, and I loved walking into a room under the arm of such a beautiful woman. Why does high school shit never go away? We were having a great evening at a table full of tennis team members and their wives when she entered the room. From afar, it looked like Christie hadn't aged a bit in the 30 years since I'd last seen her in that Greek restaurant. Her breasts were bigger. Surely you couldn't help but notice the 2 melons that accentuated her slender figure. She was wearing more jewelry than Elizabeth Taylor at the Oscars, and she was accompanied by a guy who looked to be no more than 40 years old. Most of the men and some of the wives at our table looked at her and back at me, I guess expecting a reaction. Stacy caught all of this. She followed their gazes. This must be Christie. Now our tablemates looked at Stacy, waiting for her reaction. They were disappointed if they expected Stacy to lose her temper. "I can certainly see the attraction. A beautiful woman. Sam, could you get me another glass of wine, please?" Stacy turned and continued the conversation she was having before she was interrupted. She and Larry's wife were bragging about the amazing talents of their grandchildren. I grinned and brought her some wine. We sat at our table for the next half hour. Other classmates came and went, stopping to say hello. Then I looked up and saw Christie standing next to me. "Hi, Sam." "Hi, Christie. You look good." "Thank you." Chuckles. "I don't think you've met my wife. This is Stacy." "Stacy, this is Christie. We've met before." Stacy played along. "Oh, she's so cute." "It's really nice to meet you, Christie. I can't believe you two used to date. You look barely older than our daughter." The comment confused Christy. She was at a loss for words. She was expecting a sarcastic remark from my wife, but instead she received a compliment. Now that Christy was closer, it was obvious that her breasts weren't the only work she had done. The tension around her mouth and eyes was too much. Why would anyone do this to themselves? You know how some of those Hollywood types, men and women, suddenly look like something is wrong? They look creepy. Sam, can I ask you to this dance? That is, if your wife doesn't mind you dancing with an ex-girlfriend. Stacy kept her cool in response to Christy's harassment. Mind? Of course not. Stacy winked at me, letting me know it was okay. Christy, I asked, what about your beau? He's fine as long as the bar doesn't run out of liquor. We danced. Where's Kent? Kent died 10 years ago. He must have left you a nice inheritance. You seem to be doing well. He left me everything. His widow's doing well. I travel anywhere and everywhere, always in style. Christy looked at his beau when he said that. She saw me following her gaze. Well, I had to find someone to replace you when you disappeared. I hope you waited for his 18th birthday like you waited for mine, Christy. Oh, Sam, are you jealous? I don't think so, Christy. It's time for me to move on and find my own life and wife. That's too bad, Sam. If you'd stayed there, all that money would have been yours to share with me. I got something better than your money, Christy. Look at that woman over there. Stacy gave me life. That's such a load of crap, Sam. Christy, I didn't know it then, but the best day of my life was the day a thug hired by your husband put a gun to my head and told me never to see you again. Christy looked at me with eyes as wide open as the plastic surgery allowed. I didn't know that. It didn't matter. I married Stacy. I have 2 wonderful children and 3 grandchildren. Here, look. I pulled back, ready to pull out my wallet to reveal a picture of our extended family. Just at that moment, Stacy intervened. Excuse me, it's time to dance with my husband. Stacy pressed her whole body against me and pulled us away from Christy, who was now standing alone on the dance floor. God, you're a lucky man. What do you mean? I mean, it's not working for you. Now I understood why Stacy was pressing her pelvis against mine. I had to laugh at Stacy's warning. An empty threat, love. I'd like to see how you get through a week without my love. I didn't say I'd go a week without her. You'd spend a week worshiping my body, getting no relief yourself. Hell, I love that woman, she continued to tease. What do you think? Would you like to buy me a pair of breasts similar to the ones your ex-girlfriend bought you? Don't you dare touch those beauties. I love them just the way they are. I pressed my breasts against her chest just to let her know I love them. Even if they're sagging? It was our private joke. How could they sag? They're not big enough to sag. Damn right, mister. They're all mine and they're perfect. We're perfect, baby. You know how much I love you? Stacy kissed me back.